Hello, my name's Paul Robinson. I'm the author of a few books on thyroid diagnosis and treatment. The most recent one is the Thyroid Patient's Manual, which is not just about T3, it's about T4, natural desiccated thyroid, T4, T3 and T3, so it covers all the treatments. It talks about thyroid diagnosis and some of the other things that need to be put in place around that, and the treatments themselves, and it's up to date with research. I'm also more famous, or well known at least, more well known for Recovering with T3, which is the first book of its kind that deals with using the T3 thyroid hormone when the other treatments don't work. In addition to that, I've also written the CT3M Handbook, which is about improving cortisol levels. Now, the red book and the blue book I just showed you have a little stripe on the bottom right of the front cover, and it says Updated Edition 2018 in both cases. If you want a copy of the CT3M Handbook or Recovering with T3, do make sure the one that you're buying says Updated Edition 2018. One surefire way to get that to happen is to go through my website and go on the books page, and where it says purchase from, there's a drop down menu to take you to any given Amazon site, and it will take to exactly the right link for Recovering with T3 and the CT3M Handbook, and also the Thyroid Patient's Manual. This video, however, isn't really about the books. I've been sitting here this morning at home thinking that, I've written a lot of blog posts, I've written the books. In the books, I talk a little bit about my own story and what happened to me and how it came to write the books. What I haven't done really is ever put a proper blog post out about that, or I've done a video. I haven't ever done a video on it. I've been interviewed about it, but that's the closest it's come. So this morning, I'm going to make an attempt to talk about my story and what happened. And I haven't got a script for this, as you can probably already tell. I'm just making it up as I go along. Well, I'm not making it up, I'm scripting it as I go along. Gosh, you can tell I haven't done a script. Anyway, I'm just going to launch straight into it. I was about 28, 29 when symptoms started to set in. And I'd found a job I loved doing. I was a graduate computer science person, and I found myself working for a large computer corporation in R&D, managing large groups of people, developing new computer subsystems, and I loved it. I just loved it. I adored the job. It was fantastic. If I woke up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, I'd be up, dressed, out the door in the car, and I'd be walking past the security guys. I'd be about the only person in there apart from them, and I'd be the first to get to R&D when the lights were all off. I'd turn on my light and I'd work for a few hours before other people start to drift in. It was just I just loved it. I loved the job. I was good at the job too. It was the first job I really found my feet in, that I felt I had the right blend of technical work and working with people and managing things. It's great. And then it all started to go wrong. I got to a point where I put a lot of weight on. My skin was quite dry. I'd started to forget people's names, people around me at work, at home, family members. I was forgetful. I was tired all the time. You guys all know what that feels like. I had a lot of other symptoms as well. But I hadn't realised I had any of them, as many of us don't with thyroid disease. It just creeps up on us, and it crept up on me, and I was starting to find the job a little bit more difficult. It's probably an understatement. A little bit more difficult, sure. And then my wife was having a second baby in hospital. We were in the maternity suite, and everything had gone fine. She had it, and She'd taken the heart rate monitor off, and just for a joke, I put it on, and my heart rate was 40, and my heart rate's normally in the low 80s, always has been. And we knew something wasn't right, and I went to the GP, family doctor, and she ran a bunch of tests, and believe it or not, she ran TSH, FT3, FT4, and both thyroid antibodies, amongst a whole bunch of other things. She thought they'd all come back negative, but bless her, she ran the whole suite of tests. It's unbelievable. These days you can barely get anybody to do anything more than TSH, but this is, way back. This is over 30 years ago. And she called me and she said, I'm signing you off work for 6 weeks. And she came round to see me. Getting emotional already. It was amazing what she did. She came round to see me, and she gave me thyroxine straight away. And I have to say, I had 2 weeks where I felt a lot better. Those are the only 2 weeks I ever felt a lot better on thyroxine, and I think it was simply because my TSH was already like 70 or something. So I was having the T4, and in the presence of very high TSH, you get a very, very good conversion rate of T4 to T3. Once the TSH came down, it all stopped. It was just not very good after that. And I went back to work after 6 weeks, but it was a massive struggle from then on. It's really hard. Nobody at work understood it. They didn't really understand what thyroid disease is, and that's one of the big problems with it, with the condition. It's like, if you have a heart problem or cancer or diabetes or something like that, people get it, they understand it. They don't understand thyroid problems. So when you say, oh, I'm tired, I'm struggling here, I'm feeling stressed, people just think you're complaining. They don't understand it. I know that, you know that. I've written about it in the books. I've particularly written about it in the Thyroid Patient's Manual, because it's something that's very important to bear in mind when you're trying to learn about this condition and then deal with it properly. Anyway, I continued to work as best I could at work, and they continued to try and change the thyroid medication dosage, and nothing I went on worked. No dosage worked. I was still left with virtually all the symptoms I had to start with. I think my brain was working a little better than it was, but I started to have digestive system problems, and then I started to have low cortisol issues. And this went on for years. I saw many doctors. I paid for some to see some privately, and I didn't get anywhere. Basically, my labs were all in range. So you're fully treated, Paul. Yeah. But I knew something was wrong, very wrong. And this went on for about 5, 6 years, at which point low cortisol was a real issue. I started to pass out regularly through low blood pressure. I'd lost weight. I went on to lose about somewhere between 30 and 40% of my body weight. I'm not a big heavy guy anyway, but I lost so much weight. I looked terribly ill, and I was weak. I started to pass out in work. Anyway, I got to the point where I didn't believe any of the medical profession anymore. I knew it was a thyroid issue. I had no issues before I had the problem, and I had all the same issues after I was properly treated. So I bought endocrinology books. There was no real internet in those days, so I bought endocrinology books from second-hand bookshops, the endocrinology books that the endos use when they're training, a whole bunch of them. I read everything. I digested everything I could. And I concluded that it was T4 not converting properly, and it wasn't working for me. It used to when I was younger, but then it stopped. And I wasn't exactly sure why. I have a lot better idea now. I'm not sure I'll cover that today, but a lot better idea now. That's in all the new versions of the books, the explanation for that, including the Thyroid Patient's Manual. Anyway, I went through that. I got to the point, I think 6 or 7 years in, where I started to realise I needed to try T3. And eventually I found a doctor who would give me NDT to start with, and hydrocortisone and a whole bunch of other things which didn't work. And after some time, probably 6 or 9 months, I got the T3 I wanted. And within 2 weeks, a whole bunch of symptoms improved. Some didn't. I still had severe low cortisol issues. And that went on for some time. And I got probably worse in some ways with the low cortisol than I was previously. And I started to pass out a lot in work, and I just couldn't function. And I ended up spending lots and lots of time off work. And eventually I was medically retired by the company, which was an immense problem. Thyroid disease has a lot of consequences, and for me personally, losing my career was a big consequence. It wasn't the biggest one. In fact, in some ways, I was relieved, because I was convinced at that stage that I must have been about 35, 36, maybe 37 by then. And I was convinced by that point that I probably wouldn't make 40 or 45. I thought I was going to die. Actually thought I was going to die. So I started to work on many things to put things in place to try and protect my family as much as possible. In some ways, I was relieved I got medically retired, because I knew if I died, my wife would get some of the pension, which would be enough for her and the family to cope. So that was a relief more than anything else. The other big consequence, really, I think, when you're that ill and you have small children, and you're preoccupied with trying to fix yourself, because you really need to fix yourself so that you can function and work and at home. It can be quite a stressful time on relationships, and that for me has probably been the single biggest impact on my life from this. I am not going to cry on video, but I could do it ever so easily, because the impact of that has been substantial and still is substantial. And I've written about that in the Thyroid Patient's Manual as well. Not so much, about me, but also to try to prepare people for managing the situation and getting well as fast as possible. If I had had these books when I was sick, I wouldn't have taken 10 years to get sorted. I wouldn't have lost 10 years. I wouldn't have lost my career, and the relationships would have been a heck of a lot better. So there are big impacts here, impacts that doctors don't really appreciate. So, getting well fast is really, really important. And I think that the books that I have written, especially the new one, which is applicable to so many thyroid patients, they can really help people get well fast, because they're practical, they're loaded with research, but they're still practical. And anyway, so that's kind of what happened. I mean, I lost my career, and but through the work that I did, the research that I did, I was able to develop a protocol for using T3 properly and for improving cortisol. And about 10 years or so later, I pretty much had the dosage sorted out for me, and I did feel a lot better. I'd been ill for so long, though, that it still took me a few more years to really properly recover. I had to build myself back up. I had to get stronger and get more stamina and get fitter again. It was a long, long haul. And eventually my GP, she said to me, "Paul, you've got to write something about this." So I tried to write a paper for a medical magazine, and the paper turned out to be about 70 pages. It was far too big. I didn't know how to shorten it. It was a lot of stuff to cover. And eventually it turned into this book, Recovering with T3. 300 pages, not exactly an article for a magazine. But I put everything I knew about using T3 safely in this, with enough background information on what it does and why it's important, and why it can be used safely. I put everything in there, and I've updated it now again. Like I said earlier, it's now got down here. It's got the updated edition 2018 on it, which is the one you need to look for if you need a copy of this book. And then I wrote the CT3M Handbook a little while after that. And during all that time, I was on about 12 or 14 different thyroid forums helping people. And I did that for many, many, many years until I had to stop. It was just too much. So where does that bring me? You can tell again it's not scripted. I've obviously written the Thyroid Patient's Manual this year, so I think this is the last thyroid book I'll write. That's it now. I've done my bit. I do some one-to-one consults these days. You can find out about that on my website, which is http://recoveringwitht3.com. I think that's pretty much it, really. I got there. You know, I'm 60 in December. Never thought I'd make that. Honestly, never thought I'd make that. There have been some dreadful consequences for me personally from this, and I hope the work that I've done and that others have done in the area can help some of you avoid that and get well quickly. That's the key, getting well fast, so you can get on with your lives and not be sick. That's pretty much all I wanted to say, really. Again, if you need more information about me, see my website, recoveringwitht3.com. I think that's pretty much covered it. Do remember, though, that I seem to be well known, is the word, not famous. I seem to be well known for recovering with T3, so everyone thinks I'm all about T3. I was at a thyroid conference a few days ago, and some of the people saw the new book, and they assumed it was about T3. And it isn't. This book is about all the treatments. Obviously, in getting well, I had to learn about everything, and I've worked with people privately to help them with natural desiccated thyroid, T4, T3, and thyroxine in where it's appropriate. And so I know pretty much everything about all the treatments, and this book is a really good general one. So, okay, so that's it. I hope that tells you a little bit more. It's been a journey and a half, that's for sure. I'm stable now. I'm on 60 micrograms of T3 per day, and I have been for quite some time. I don't see that changing anytime soon. It's not a massive dose, but when it's dosed properly and carefully, as described in the Recovering with T3 book, you can minimise how much you take and still get a really good result, still have all the energy you want, and stay healthy. So, I wish you all good health, and that tells you a little bit more about me. And what a journey it was. It's been a heck of a long time it took me to get right. I hope you all get well a lot faster. Anyway. Well, that was it. It was unscripted, I'm afraid. You can probably tell. But I did my best. Okay, bye for now.